what you see with your client,
Mhm.
then, do you prepare them? Do they need this education though first when you work
Mhm.
one-on-one or in groups? I don't know.
Yeah.
That anger that, do we run away from it still? Do we have
Mhm.
a harder time to get along with this emotion because of
Yeah.
the original wiring as caregiver?
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I think, what we're generally see in our modern world with anger is it's either repressed or it's explosive.
Mm,
And men are encouraged on the explosive side, and women are generally encouraged on the repressive side. Neither are good. Both are unhealthy expressions of aggression and are destructive to the system. Like being explosively angry and just full of rage all the time is not healthy. Having all your anger repressed and bound up is not healthy, right? So both sides of that extreme are expressions of dysregulation. So really both women and men tend to have to learn how to access anger in a healthy way,
mm,
right? And there's plenty of men who have anger repressed and plenty of women who don't. Like we can't, but in general, you're right. That is a trend. My colleagues and I, I've heard, just joking together, like, yeah, about 90% of my job is helping women get angry, like it's, it is true. Like it is so much of it is supporting that. So yes, what we need to do is work with what we call healthy aggression. So
mm,
it's not about getting angry. It's about understanding that anger is an expression of life force. It's fundamentally about self-protection. So when you think about a wolf, say, who's protecting her cubs,
mm,
right? And she's gonna look really angry. She's not feeling angry, right? This is the mechanism of self-protection that is expressing through me, right? So anger, I don't even really view so much as an emotion. It's like an emotional fuel kind of that is meant to power action. It's supposed to power the action of self-protection, fighting off the threat, right? So when we work with the energy of anger, which so often is expressed through tension or thought loops, like just angry thoughts, right? We need to get it into the body, but expressed in a healthy way. So yes, the first part of that is education. The groundwork of all this work is education. Like in Irene's programs, in my private practice, it all starts with education because we need to learn about this stuff very often so we understand at a cognitive level, at least, that it's
mm,
okay to go there, right? And then we work with the system to help it feel safe enough that it can go there. That's the other foundation. So education and safety. Again, with the gazelle, it only discharged its fight flight response once it reached safety. Our human systems are the same. There's a lot that can happen organically once the right conditions are in place. That's most of our job, is building that safety, the internal knowledge, which also brings safety because we have self-understanding, right? And then slowly using different somatic approaches to open up the body, to open up the system, to let the energy start to move, and then giving people specific tools to work with that energy of anger and aggression that use the muscles of the body, that use the facial expression, that use the sounds, maybe the words that never got to be spoken. Sometimes there's motions that want to come out, right? We want to push, or maybe we want to strangle someone. So we get a towel and we just feel that energy of squeezing, using the body in different ways where we can express the anger, but stay connected to the felt sense of the body. So there's, for example, practices out there that we consider like too cathartic, like, bashing something with a baseball bat, breaking plates against a wall, screaming, primal scream. All of this stuff is like, it's kind of the caveman approach to working with anger. It doesn't understand that we need to stay connected. And these big explosive actions where people just go fully into rage, they're not staying connected to their experience. It's then just reliving it, essentially, right? So we need to change it and learn these ways of how we can allow these self-protective responses that want to emerge out in a safe, powerful way that's very healthy.
So in other words, we want to always kind of work with the system, be in the middle, be careful.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
the word that I've learned really titrate. Right?
Titrate. Yep. Drop at a time. That's all that means. Yeah. It's from chemistry. Add a drop at a time until the change occurs.
Yeah.
So
We
it's
want
like,
to do everything fast. We want fast results, so we go to those retreats and one
yeah,
week meditation, one week of
yeah,
screaming,
yeah,
and so
exactly.
this is like just the journey.
Mhm. That's
So
right.
to take it slow, it took time to create all this, right? And it's
Yes.
time to
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a very important point. That people, we've been wired to want a quick fix and take pill A to solve problem B, and just let's just get it out, get through it. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't, you can take 40, 50 years to become really unhealthy and and traumatized. Is not going to take 40, 50 years to get better. Thankfully, the system wants to heal. It has an organic trend towards healing. So once we start putting the right supports in place, it's more like maybe 6, 7 years to really get fully back to health. But it takes years. And people often don't want to hear that. But it's just the case. The nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, which is fundamentally where we're intervening and changing and rewiring, it's so intricate. It's so delicate. It can't handle or integrate big changes. You have to do a little bit of change, and then it needs to integrate. And then maybe the next week you do another little piece of work and you let that integrate. That's the only way it works, because of the delicacy of the system and the complexity of the system and everything that it's connected to, right? When we change something in the survival response, that changes other things that are happening in our body. It changes our behaviors, our mindset, our emotions, our everything shifts as we do this work. So yeah, it's got to be slow. Unfortunately, that's just the way we found it to be. But
yeah.
there can be really big, profound, wonderful changes that happen along that journey. The more I've done this work, the more I've come to be convinced that it actually never ends in terms of what you can discover within yourself. But you can get to a place where you're like back to a baseline of just regulation. You're not getting triggered anymore. You're not anxious. You're in flow. You have access to your creativity. You're vibrant. You're healthy. You're full of, a sense of purpose. You discover what you want to do in the world. All of these things come from healing, and we can get to that place. Now, what's I've noticed that's interesting is, I've got to that place, and then as I continued on, even though I'm regulated and I don't get triggered by stuff anymore, and I have tons of capacity and lots of energy, what tends to happen is then once in a while you discover something really big and juicy that is like, oh, I didn't know that was still in there, right? But it comes through very easily, right? And then even that tends to get fewer and far between. But yeah, it's really about embracing the idea that healing and restoring health and getting back to regulation, and then like full vibrancy and discovering our fullest expression of ourself. That's a journey that really, it doesn't have an endpoint, I don't think. It's a continual process of discovery and evolution, and it just tends to get easier and easier and easier the more we do this work.
Yeah, it's a skill
Yeah,
eventually.
it's a
And
lifestyle change. It's a whole change the way we are in the world. It's a
yeah,
change to ourselves. All of my clients, without exception, have gotten to a point where they say, I feel like I don't know who I am. Right?
I had
That's
that moment,
yeah.
that little moment where my psyche was like, what's going on here? Like, who am I?
Mhm.
Right?
Who am
So,
I? Who is this? Yeah,
so many things are just falling, away, disappearing, and it's really interesting. And also, it's very organic when you release something, or your body, you don't release, I think, and the body does.
yeah,
Uh, it then there's this integration, and then you suddenly have those new thoughts,
exactly.
rebirth, like, and you
Yeah,
see things clearly, like people who are suddenly, you see, you're not in a great relationship,
yeah,
and that person is actually crossing the boundaries, and actually I don't have any boundaries, And all that stuff just happens when every time something shifted in your body, it's a little bit lighter and happier, right? The
Yeah.
last, yeah, sorry.
No, yeah, just absolutely. Yeah, the ripples are amazing. Like there's so often like, yeah, people will lose most of their friends, and then they'll gain new friends because they realize that their old relationships were actually toxic and keeping them stuck in a pattern, or they're in a codependent thing where we're both like reinforcing each other's trauma, right? And so often, relationships change, different things come in, our jobs change, things, people don't want to do anymore what they were doing. They realize they want to do something else that's more in alignment with them. Just the whole life just changes.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
thing when people say, I just thought about when you said that triggers, when you learn this stuff and when you start to learn about your system, it's not anymore this blame also. I mean, surely we are triggered, not we, I think, our brain and the body, there are
Mhm.
things that trigger the system, but before you know all that stuff, it's like, I can't be with that person, this person makes me this and that. And it's rather like defensive, yeah, right? Very
Yeah.
negative. You
Yeah.
feel very like a victim all the time because things are happening in your body. Then you thought, oh, it's that person or that person. And
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
me. So here, when you kind of do this work and learn about your body and nervous system, that is like you getting your power back, right?
That's right. That's right. It's like, oh, actually, this is me that's having these responses, and I can change that. And I mean, sometimes what goes along with that is sometimes the relationship changes, or sometimes we're like, yeah, this is me, but also I'm seeing that that person is actually kind of toxic and doesn't really work for me, right? But sometimes it's not like that at all. We realize, oh, this person that was really bugging me, there's nothing wrong with them at all. They were just, it was just me, that they were, something was getting poked at in me that, because of the way they are, it was being revealed to me, something I didn't like about myself, or something that, was stuck in my system, right? So yeah, very often it's about responsibility. It's about taking your power back, being responsible for yourself, being responsible for your experience, and recognizing that there's jerks out there that you may not want to be connected to, or but another thing that happens is our radar changes. Like, we very often, when people are traumatized, their radar is not accurate. Like, they'll be attracted to people who are actually quite toxic, and they won't get clued into like things that could be really good for them, because the radar is sort of discombobulated by the survival responses that are wanting resolution. They're clouding the picture. And so we get drawn to things and repeat patterns and repeat relationships, right? That's something we see over and over again. Someone gets in the same kind of dysfunctional relationship over and over and over again, right? That happens because the system, again, has an organic trend toward healing. It's trying to find resolution, and it will keep on putting us in the same kind of situations that echo our original trauma until we find a different outcome. That happens over and over. So,
Mm. So
yeah.
it's a lot of things coming up to the surface for us to see, probably for
Yes.
the first time in our life.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes, yeah. So this
Yeah.
could be a bit scary for people, of course, right?
Yes. Yes. Oh,
And
yeah.
just add to that, because when people think, trauma, we said we clarified that, but also like, do I have to go back and I will remember
Mm.
things? And I
Mhm.
don't want to remember my car accident. It was
Mhm.
horrible. Like, you
Yeah.
know, does that happen like that? Like, it's like the way people think,
Yeah.
right?
So it's important to first know that we don't work necessarily with the memories. Like, we don't have to, you don't have to relive, or like, necessarily go through everything that happened, right? We work with what's happening in the body in the moment. So that being said, though, sometimes, if we're working with the physiology and something shifts, a memory will spontaneously appear. That does happen, like something they had forgotten about, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I've been feeling this, and then this, I just had this memory, like, oh my gosh, that's where this comes from, right? But generally, when that happens, I've never experienced that as being overwhelming for my clients, because it happens after you build a lot of foundations, right? The system tends to organically protect us, and the mind tends to organically protect us from stuff that is overwhelming a lot of the time. And then as we're doing this work, we start to have it come back. But it doesn't, and sometimes it's scary. Yeah, sometimes, and there's no getting around that. If we're healing trauma, that means we are eventually going to have to feel all the stuff that was too overwhelming to feel. That's the only way to heal it, is to feel it. Like, there is no way around that. However, we can build our capacity, our knowledge, our education, our tool set, our support network, such that we can handle that experience. Right? That's why we always start, like in Irene's program, Smart Body, Smart Mind, we don't even touch into working with anger at all until like the 8th week or the 7th week, because we want to build tons of foundations of education and other ways of resourcing yourself and your tools, right? And all these ways that you have to calm the system, you learn first, right? So yes, you will eventually come face to face with very difficult emotions and sensations, and there may be memories that are part of that, right? Now, there's some people who are trapped in their negative memories all the time already. That's another thing that happens with trauma, right? Is flashbacks, or they can't stop thinking about something. And in those cases, it's actually can be a tremendous relief to learn how to come into the body and out of the mind and work with the emotions and the sensations instead of kind of being tortured by these thoughts, right? So it can work that way too.
So OCD, this kind of stuff,
Yeah,
is also trauma.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And it can resolve with this work over
Yes.
time.
Yep.
So yeah.
Behavioral manifestations like OCD tend to take a little bit longer. Like behavioral shifts can sometimes be some of the last thing that changes. Essentially with OCD, what someone would have to do is develop the capacity to the point where they could be with the incredibly uncomfortable sensations and emotions that come when they stop themselves from doing the thing that they feel like they need to do, right? And that can take a long time to get there. And it may happen in gradated stages. Like, okay, I can put off washing my hands for like 10 minutes and I can work through, gosh, this really feels uncomfortable, but I've learned how to like work. And then, okay, I'm going to wash my hands, right? So, behavioral manifestations sometimes take longer to get through, but it does happen. Absolutely.
And the last one here I wanted to ask, from my also personal experiences, the near-death experience and out-of-body experience. I think this is also a bit tricky.
Yeah.
Because something happened to the body, right?
Yeah.
So this happened to me when I was very young. So I had out-of-body this experience, and please explain me, what's the difference first? Why near death and out-of-body experience?
Well, I mean, they can be the same. But yeah, people could have out-of-body experiences in all sorts of ways. And this can bridge into the spiritual realms, right? Which I'm also very familiar with. But you can have an out-of-body experience just by being dissociated. Like, a person can be sitting there and not really at home, right? They can be not connected to their experience. Like, if it's like when you call someone's name 10 times and like the no response, it's like, yeah, they're checked out. They're in their imagination somewhere. They're not connected to the here and now. That's one kind of out-of-body experience. But there's the other kind where, like, yeah, maybe you're knocked unconscious, or maybe there's it could happen in dreams sometimes, where it's like, yeah, your soul, your astral body leaves your physical body and goes on a journey. And that happens. And when that happens in the context of death, like a near-death experience, that I think is very much, the soul starting to go on its journey, and then realizing, oh, maybe I'm not done yet, or right, whatever may happen there. But yeah, there's different gradations.
I had that exact experience. My life was never the same after, and it was just coming back to body as an adult. I don't know. um, and I was on this journey, energy and
Yeah.
discovering spiritual stuff because of that experience, of course, because I did see my body and I did experience no tunnel, no lights, but
Mm.
another being with me. And it was really interesting experience. And I was being asked if I want to go back to my body. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, no, not really. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
pretty cool here, it's really
Yeah.
cool. The consciousness is just so pure. You're really peaceful, and that was
Mhm.
beautiful. And then I was back in my body, and I don't remember any of it. I remember
Mm.
being, you know, on the sofa, my mother panicking, everybody screaming, and I'm just laying there like, what's going on? What just happened? And then we speak of
Mm.
7, but I have a very clear memory of that. And so I assume, even though I had this experience and I came
Mm.
back and I felt great, I felt great,
Mm.
physically good. But now is the question, was I freeze? Was my body,
Mm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you
Hard,
know?
yeah, hard to say for sure. It certainly could have been. I mean, yeah, I mean, if your breathing stopped, or if,
Yeah. My
yeah,
father was
yeah,
saved me. It was a couple of minutes before they got
yeah,
me out of the bathtub
yeah.
where I connected water with electricity for fun.
Your system certainly would have gone into shock and freeze and, yeah,
Yeah.
preparing for
And
death.
now,
Yeah.
is it like, because I had throughout my life all those weird sensations and things that are really like scary, and I did suppress all of it, because it was just like I had no capacity, as to say, seeing your body, having this outside of body experience felt good. And then it's like, I was super sensitive, of course. I was a hypersensitive kid, I was feeling things differently.
Necessarily bad in and of itself. I
Yeah, but
mean,
the
right?
body, it's like,
Yeah.
I'm just learning this now, so I'm thinking, okay, am I in functional freeze? Because there is a lot of activation, and of course, the system is a little bit, but the freeze from that, because there are parts of my body that I can feel that could be frozen from that
Mm.
moment when I was electrocuted, because I can't
Yeah.
remember it. And
Yeah.
now the sensations that are coming up where are so weird, we can't even put in words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
It's, so you have clients like that it was like it's like you can't really express it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. And the more you do this, the more you can have experiences that are very hard to describe. Yeah. But that is when you're especially reclaiming states like from that are associated with altered states of consciousness or out of body experience. That, yeah, that can be really weird feeling, because it's like your parts of your body are coming back to yourself, but it's almost like you're reclaiming them from the dream space in a way. It can be a strange experience and sensations that are hard to describe or really name. Yeah, can be a part of that. Yeah. And
Mm,
it's reclaiming the self, right? It's connected to, this kind of thing is kind of connected to the shamanic practice of soul retrieval, what we call soul retrieval. Now, traditionally, the shaman would, go into a trance state with the person and go into the astral realm and call the person's soul back, or a fragment that may have broken off to bring it back. And I kind of look at it with this work, what we're learning to do is do that for ourselves. We're learning to summon back our own scattered pieces of ourself that may have been fragmented here and there, through our experience. And sometimes that does involve kind of trippy experiences, when it's connected to disembodied states and that kind of thing.
okay. Well, this was wonderful. I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Very good, very good.
Beautiful, really good energy here, and thank you so much. The voice you have right now,
Mm.
the resonance, and very chesty, and
Yeah, yeah,
it's very, very alive, but very soothing, and especially to my system person.
yeah, yeah.
So tell me, where can people find you? Can
Mm.
you still take new clients on, or
Yeah,
really?
no, unfortunately, I am beyond full, and yeah, I have a wait list that's so long I can't even add people to the wait list. So it's yeah, my unfortunately my private practice isn't accessible. There are other people who do the work that I do, but if people are feeling intrigued by this and they want to explore it, really what I would recommend is you start with Irene's online programs, because even if you wanted like do private one-on-one sessions, it's really, really, really helpful if you can get at least a solid foundation first. Lots of practitioners don't bother with the education piece. Shockingly, actually, most don't. They won't educate you about your system. So I would say if people want to get started with this, do the 21-day nervous system tune-up. That's like, it's, you don't have to do it in 21 days. It's just we pace it out over 21 days. There's people who've taken 6 months or a year to go through it, but it's like, get that foundation on board first, because for many people just that is enough to produce really profound change. That it's not just education in there, it's also practical neurosensory exercises, like foundational ones. You have support from somatic experiencing practitioners, our team, to answer your questions. So just doing that can produce a lot of change and give you very solid foundations for doing private sessions. Or if you like Irene's way of teaching, and mine as well, you could join us in Smart Body, Smart Mind, which is the 12-week program that we're actually running again in September, opening up for registrations. We have been doing it once a year, but this year we have enough staff and enough systems in place so that we can actually do it twice a year. At least we're experimenting with that. But yeah, we're going to run it again in September. So if you're really keen, I would recommend that, because that is the full enchilada, like all the education, tons of neurosensory exercises, live lectures with Irene, Q&A calls with me. Like, it's a big, big program that you have lifetime access to. And for 4 months of the year, there's also professional support there. Like during the program, there's 4 months where there's, again, our whole team of professionals answering questions. So that's what I would recommend if you want to get into the work. First, do like one of those so you have a really good foundation. And then if you want to do one-on-one sessions, which can be really great, you're much more informed about what to look for, because unfortunately, not all practitioners really know how to do this work. There's tons of, compared to the amount of psychologists and counselors and psychiatrists in the world, there's very few somatic experiencing practitioners. We're still a relatively small group compared to those traditions that have been around for 100 or more years. And of those somatic experiencing practitioners, not all of them really fully know how to do the work, in my experience. So, and there's tons of great ones, right? But you'll know much more what kind of practitioner is really good and solid and knows what they're doing if you have a foundation in place. So that's my
Right.
recommendation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And your music that I recommend is wonderful. Is
Oh
on
yeah,
your
that's on my website. Yeah, yeah, Tellurica. So that's a sound healing album. And then I also have stuff on SoundCloud, some more healing music tracks. There's an old album of songs on there that I'm not crazy about, but I'm working, it's out there. I recorded, those are from like about, I don't know, 16 years ago, before I fully got my voice. But I'm working on a new album of original songs right now, which I'm really excited about.
cool.
Yeah, really
Very
excited about. Yeah.
cool. Wait, like what direction you're going with?
So these are sort of in the alternative rock, folk kind of tradition. Yeah, lots of different influences in there. My early album of songs is kind of, yeah, alternative rock, I would say, like lots of different influences. But then I also have like healing music that I do, and instrumental music, like a bunch of different kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. So this is like new project for coming year.
Yeah, it's about, well, I've been doing it for more than a year, and I'm more
Ah,
than halfway done. So yeah, but yeah, it'll probably be done in 2023. Yeah.
right. So people can also find you on social medias anywhere.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I've got a Lifeforce Liberation page there. And yeah, I'm not a huge social media presence, but that's mainly it. Also though, Irene, my wife, she's got a huge YouTube channel, like that's like, yeah, tons and tons of free education. It's amazing. So yeah,
Going
you can,
to add all of that in description,
sure.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that people know where to find you. Thank you so much. This was wonderful, and I wish you a, what is it now? Wonderful day, I think, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Noonish.
here is pretty late and we're heading to bed, but you guys have
Okay.
still a day ahead. So all the best for you in all your endeavors, and thank you for this interview, and say hi to Irene from me as well.
Will
You
do.
see. Take care, my dear. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. So great.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, bye.